People constantly telling them, don't do this, don't do that, don't jump up, don't sit here, don't do this, don't go out the door, don't pull, don't be here, don't poop here. It actually creates a neurotic or psychotic dog.
I think you need somebody who's really trusted and invested in you that can have those hard conversations with you to make sure that you actually see your business for what it is and not for what's in your heart and what you believe it is.
Think of it as a 3D printer in your pocket that you can use anywhere, any place, anytime, and fix and improve or repair or make something brand new.
We make a whole line of alcohol detox and wellness shots for health conscious party goers.
I'm Richard Gearhart.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. You've just heard some clips from our show. If you want to hear the rest of it, which you should because it was incredibly awesome, stay tuned.
I'm Richard Gearhart.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the show that's all about entrepreneurism, innovation, and the intellectual property that helps them flourish. Tonight, we have a super special guest, Warren Eckstein, who is a pet psychologist, a celebrity pet trainer, and host of the radio show, The Pet Show. And then after that, we'll also have Colleen Ferrary, who is going to be talking about Small Business USA. She is going to be interviewed by our very own award-winning Carrie Barrett, who is from Carrie Barrett Consulting.
And then we are going to have the solution. Throw out your glue. This is a new product. You will never use glue again.
All that glue that I've got, I have to get rid of now.
Robert Harbauer will be talking about Bondic. And then last but certainly not least, especially with the holidays coming up, Jen Do has a solution to your hangover woes. So stay tuned.
So stick with it. Anyway, so we're here with Warren Eckstein. And so happy to have you here with us, Warren. You're a legend in broadcasting. And so we really just want to get right into it. How did you get into the pet counseling business in the first place?
Well, I grew up on Long Island, in a typical Long Island Jewish household. You know, all of my relatives lived in the Bronx and Brooklyn, Staten Island, in the city. We were the first family to move to Long Island. So on weekends, it was like the ultimate gathering. Every one of the cousins, relatives would come to the house on Long Island. I was shy as a kid, believe that. I was shy as a kid. And behind my parents' house was an old little creek, and there were like snapping turtles and ducks and different types of muskrats and rats and geese. And when all these people came towering down on my little home, I said, that's it. I can't deal with it anymore. I love you, Grandma. I love you, Grandpa, but I'm out of here. I went into the backyard, and that's where I spent my time. And ever since I was maybe 8, 9 years old, I always felt more comfortable around animals than I did around people, even to this day. You know, I'm talking to you now and I don't look like I'm afraid, but I got butterflies in my stomach talking to people. When I'm with dogs and cats, piece of cake.
So your first patient was a muskrat?
Yeah, muskrat or a snapping turtle. The snapping turtle had a bit of an attitude adjustment that I had to work on, but we got there.
I was going to say, do they have attitudes? Are they snapping turtles because that's the way they communicate?
If you call something a snapping turtle, chances are they're going to snap. If they just called it a turtle, probably they'd be a lot more mellow. But here's how it started with all these people coming out, and then years later, I got out of the service and I was training in Europe. I actually snuck into East Germany when the wall was up. I can't get in trouble anymore, but because I did that, I was able to work with some of the kennels over there. And then I went to Holland and all over Europe training and whatever. And I came back to the US and I had just gotten married to my high school sweetheart, and nothing existed. There was no such thing as animal psychology. I told my parents I was going to be America's first animal psychologist. The first thing they did was try to get me into therapy. But I got married and I had no idea. I knew there was something that I had. I knew there was some information I had, but how do I get it out? I didn't know. And so I said to my wife, Faye, at the time, I said, Faye, I have all this stuff that can help people get a better understanding of their pets, which would benefit not only the people, but the pets. How do I get that out there? On Long Island.
That's such an interesting idea. I mean, when I was growing up, there was no such thing as animal psychology. I mean, animals just had their own way and you just kind of dealt with it.
Richard, when you were growing up, there was probably not much in the way of people psychology. I know there wasn't much when I was growing up.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well,
Karen.
our attitude in our house was so out of sync with today's attitude to our animals. My dad grew up as a farmer, and so his attitude toward animals they were food. And when from a very young age, they owned a restaurant in Nebraska, and he would go out and be responsible for killing the chickens for that day's quota of food. And so in our house, he had such a different attitude.
But it's not that way anymore.
It's not that way
in our
anymore.
house now, cats are king, right? And probably too much. So I bet Warren could give me some tips for calming these little tyrants down.
After I have that discussion with your cats, I'll tell you exactly what to do. It's the way to go. But here's what happened. As I said to my parents, I said to my wife, listen, I got to make a living. So I started working at a dry cleaner, and people would come in with dog hair and cat hair on their clothes, the same people every week. And we'd start relationships, and I'd help them out a little here. But I said to Denise, to my wife, I said, there's something called a penny saver. I think you have them all over the country, like little newspapers that go to all the towns, penny savers.
Yeah.
And there's an affluent Jewish area on Long Island called the 5 Towns. So I took out an ad in the newspaper that said, we'll teach your dog Yiddish for $15. Now that may sound funny to you, but people call. That's the funny part. And that's what I did. For $15, I would go to your home, and I don't care if you had Cujo. For $15, Warren would come there and solve any behavior problems you had. And that's how it started. And then reputation started building and building and building and building. And here I am 40 years later.
So that's really great. I mean, it must require a huge depth of experience to deal with all the different animal types and all the different animal psychologies. Can you give us just some examples of sort of how you pick up on the behaviors and then how you treat them?
It's often spending more time with the guardians than the animal itself. For example, the typical American family, the husband's watching football on Monday night, tells the dog to hop on the couch. The wife comes in and says, get the dog off the couch. The dog calls me and says, isn't that the definition of neurosis? So those are the lack of consistency within is part of it. But so many behavioralists, years ago, we talked about latchkey pets. Both mother and father are working. When I was growing up, mom was home all day. So dogs have to deal with a lot more things like separation anxiety, first pet psychology. You have cats, a bunch of them. I get calls all the time. We have 2 cats in the household. We're introducing a 3rd cat. What do we need to do to make sure they get along? Or we're introducing a new dog. What do we need to do? And I explained to people, look at it from your point of view. I had a woman call me on the show last week that was bothered by the fact that her dog, for example, wasn't reacting the right way. And she wanted to bring another dog into the household. And she didn't understand why they wouldn't get along. And so, well, how would you feel if another woman moved into the house and went right to your makeup? How would you feel about that? You're bringing another dog into the household. He's going to go to the dog's bowl. He's going to take over all that area. So what I would do is I would introduce dogs on neutral territory. No need to be territorial. No need to be protective. And little by little, I had as many as 30 dogs of my own at one time. All rescue dogs, of course. So it's looking at the family. And so what I do is, animal psychology, animal trainer behavior, it's really like pet social work.
So I got to ask you a question though. So we have this little write-up on you here, so I don't lie, but I have to tell people I don't have this all memorized, but you were on Regis and Kathy Lee, NBC, Today Show's contributing pet and animal editors, private celebrity clients. But the one that I see here that I don't know how you would work this relationship is official trainer to the New York mob.
Yeah, that was, it was interesting. I had taken the ads into Penny Saver. Believe it or not, that Penny Saver ad created my whole career. I got to David Letterman, to all those TV shows, all through that one ad. So what happened was, when I was doing those TV shows, it was my way of talking to the masses at one time, because the advice I was giving was I was so demonized by the industry, because everyone was, correct this problem, you got to correct that problem, you got to stop the dog from doing this. They were just totally micromanaging the dog. For example, someone calls me on the show and says, listen, I can't stand it. I take my dog to the dog park and he sniffs the butts of other dogs. And I explained to him, that's the internet. That's Google for your dog. That is everything your dog needs to know is right there. That dog smell is so much more important. So I think really what I do is I've taken something that no one else ever did. And now the hardest thing to find in America right now is someone who doesn't give you dog advice or cat advice.
But an important part of what you're doing, though, is you're teaching the pet owners to accept the animal's behavior instead of trying to change it, at least to some degree. And that just probably reduces the tension and the problems between pets and their pet parents.
Well, it's give and take. In other words, you can't expect your dog or your cat to respond 100% of the time unless you do. I like an 85% response. I'm happy with that. So what happens is, again, the people constantly tell me, don't do this, don't do that, don't jump up, don't sit here, don't do this, don't go out the door, don't pull, don't be here, don't poop here. It actually creates a neurotic or psychotic dog. It's created by the family. So it's what I try to do is explain to the family, look at it from your dog's point of view. How would you feel if everyone in the house told you what to do and you were the only one receive? Of course you're going to rebel. So that's why I deal with a lot of dogs and many, many cats that all of a sudden, this ain't working, folks. I've had it. I'm going to pee over there instead of my litter box. I get that all the time. Or I'm going to jump on the couch or I'm going to scratch the door. I'm going to keep you up. So I try not to focus on correcting the problem versus trying to figure out why the problem was created in the first place.
So I have a question, cat specific question. Why do cats guard the door? Like I'll leave the door open a little so the 3 cats can go in and out. And one of them will just sit there in the doorway.
A cat's sense of smell is very, very strong. So they know, for example, if there's a stray cat outside, if there's a possum outside or anything that they perceive as territorial or something invading them, they're going to stay where that entranceway is. So it's very, very common for a cat to stay by an open window or an open door. They're, in their mind, they're protecting themselves from anything else coming in.
That's amazing. So just we're going to be very open and transparent about our pet issues here. And I just want to say from the outset that there's no neurotic behavior in our house. Maybe in other houses, but not in our house.
There are also no rules for the cats at all.
And there's no rules for the cats.
Although they do use their litter box.
But that said, we have a cat, an older cat, who starts meowing at
no, she's caterwauling.
Caterwauling. Can you reproduce a caterwauling sound for our audience? I
don't think they want me
to. But it's not meowing. It's like
yelling. She's yelling.
As
loud as she can. Yeah.
And so if that's and so she starts it at 5 a.m. when I wake up, and she wakes up the whole household. And she will just go on these long rampages, and I'll give her some attention. I'll pet her, but she's really loud, and she doesn't do this in the evening or during the day. It's just really in the morning.
She's almost 16 years old now.
Yeah.
Well, at 16, is it something that's been going on for a long time?
No, it just
okay. Well, here's your problem. Chances are she's losing her hearing at 13 years old. It's very common for a dog or a cat as they get older to lose their hearing. So the world sounds entirely different to them. They don't sound as loud to themselves as they sound to you because they're not hearing themselves. So it sounds to me like it could be the best way to resolve a situation like that is to, before you go to bed, I don't know how you feed your cat. Before you go to bed, give the cat an extra meal at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Full belly means better sleep. That's number one. Number two, encourage your mind beforehand. And you're making the big mistake, Richard, because if you react to the cat, why should the cat stop? If I come home late, my mother yelled at me and then gave me a chocolate chip cookie, I'm going to stay out late. It's not convincing me not to. So by giving her any attention, positive or negative, because animals respond to both, by giving her any attention, you're actually saying, hey, get up. And also remember that cats are nocturnal. So at 5 o'clock in the morning is like maybe you're 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So a little extra food at night, give her a hug and a kiss, have her for another 13 years, and put some earplugs in when you go to sleep.
Okay, well, we'll give it a shot. And
but check out that hearing.
Really out of options, right? So it sounds like good advice. So thanks.
Yeah. So Carrie, did you have a question?
It is, so I have an older dog. She's 15. She's a rescue dog. She's been with us for quite some time. She's little. She's about 11 pounds. She's a Jack Russell mix, which we know, they're a little bit crazy anyway.
It's Jack Russell terrorist, not Jack Russell Terrier, Jack Russell terrorist. That's what I think.
You know what? It's funny. We call her the mass murderer because in her younger days, we have a dog door. We live like sort of in the woods, and it's possum, it's mice, it's birds, it's squirrels, it's like, and they all end up in the house. Anyway, my question is, I've always heard like smaller dogs are the ones that are a little bit more aggressive, right? Like she's usually behind me, but she will go and attack pretty much anything, like a Rottweiler, a Great Dane. It doesn't matter. She seems to have no concept of how much smaller she is than those. I have heard that one of the reasons smaller dogs tend to be more aggressive is that people humanize them a little more, meaning like we treat them as if they're small children. When something comes up to them, we pick them up very quickly and we like cradle them as if they're a small child, or we perhaps even worse, put them in a purse and we call them a pocket pet. Is there any truth to any of that? Have we created these little monsters, or is that just naturally in their disposition?
Well, no, it's not naturally their disposition. In other words, they're not born little and say, all right, I'm going to turn into Cujo, and they're not born big and say, I'm going to be this. So it depends on the individual dog. I hate to see, and I don't want to sound like Archie Bunker, that big dogs are one way, little. My two dogs right now, the two of them weigh 15 pounds together, and they were rescued about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is this. It's a bit of a Napoleon complex. If I lived in a world where everyone around me was 18 feet tall, you better believe I'm getting a lot of tattoos, okay, right off the bat, rolling up some cigarettes and I'm going to act as tough as I possibly can. It's a matter of survival, even in the wild. The bigger animals, that's what the old story, the elephant's afraid of the mice. Yeah. So it's all how they act. So it's all how you treat them too. In other words, my dogs, they're small, but I don't treat them any different than I would treat my German Shepherds or my Rottweilers. I treat them all the same. They all get the same attention. They all get the same thing. They're all spoiled, which I enjoy spoiling my animals. People say, Warren, you must have the best trained animals in the world. No, I don't have the best trained. I don't care whether my animals do this. I don't, in my backyard, for example, a lot of dogs dig holes, especially terriers like Jack Russells. So people would say to me, what do you do? And I said, listen, dogs are going to dig holes. So if you go to my backyard right now, you will find 2 kiddie pools. They're filled with sand, they're filled with dirt.
Yeah.
When I first got them, I went in there, I hid their toys, I got down on all fours, and I started digging like this myself. My neighbors don't talk to me, by the way. And so once the dogs started seeing me do that, now the only place they dig in my backyard is in those kiddie pools. So I can have roses and rhododendrons and still have my backyard. So there's always ways, rather than correcting the dog, there's always ways of channeling. So if you have an aggressive dog and it's little, what you need to do is have more people exposed to the dog, but not standing up. Let them get down on all fours. Let them meet the dog on their levels.
She's awesome with people. Amazing with people. Like my little guys, they're all over her and she's completely docile. It's only animals. I'm talking about a dog that launched herself off of a boat one time to go swim to shore and attack like a 150-pound dog.
Have you had the dog since it was have you had it since it was a puppy?
Oh, she was a stray. She was actually abandoned. She was kicked out. We found her on the streets in the middle of winter.
So in the middle of winter, I don't know, where do you live? What state?
I found her in Utah. There was like 3 feet of snow on the ground. So we've had her, we're guessing she was about 1 year old when we got her. So not since she was teeny tiny, but we've had her, she's 15 now. We've had her for about 14 years.
So she's a little dog that was stray on the streets. How do you think she survived? If she didn't act tough with other dogs, she never would have survived.
Yeah.
So she had to be the first guard. She had to protect herself by being more aggressive or more assertive to other dogs.
Well,
because she was trying to survive.
Yeah, I want to hear about Kenya's dog issues if she has any. I know you have a dog.
I have a dog. He's a 10-year-old pit bull. We don't really have a lot of issues with him. He's had some health issues in the past, like I'd say 18 months since I've been home with him during COVID. What I did have a question about is my sister studied veterinary medicine at Cornell. And what I was always fascinated about with pet professions or professionals is how do you diagnose people like things that don't talk, right? So I was always just curious, like, what is a diagnosis and was the most complicated diagnosis you've had to make? Because, pets don't talk. We don't really get a lot of feedback from them.
It's just like having an infant. They don't talk either, but you have to be an incredible observer. For example, this is going to sound a little gross, but I'll give you an example. I go out in the backyard at least once a week and I check my dog's poop to see what it looks like, because that's indication if they're healthy or they're not healthy. I watch how much they eat all the time. I give them a great supplement, my own. And so all of these things really make a difference, but it's the observance of the dog that's really critical. Most people don't spend enough time watching their dog when the dog is perfect and the dog is healthy and there's no problem. So they don't know what it's like to have a dog without a behavior issue or without a medical issue. So when it crops up, they think it all of a sudden happened, or it might have been going on gradually and might have been able to be treated a little bit earlier. For example, I had a call last week from someone with an aggressive pit bull, and I love pit bulls, greatest dogs in the world. In fact, I trained the dog up there. I don't know if you can see him. That's the Buster Brown dog. I'm Buster Brown. I live in a shoe. This is my dog, Tig. I live there too. Well, that's the last Tig that was owned by the Buster Brown company that was trained by me that I brought back. But anyway, they called up and the dog was showing aggressive behavior, which was rare. So I sent them to a vet and I said, have the vet check the thyroid. They checked the thyroid. The thyroid had increased. Once the vet got the thyroid down, the aggressive behavior stopped entirely. So sometimes you have to be that good of an observer, especially to indicate if there's something bad going. And I admire vets. In fact, very often I'll speak to my own vet and say, I'm not going to my doctor, doc. You tell me what's wrong.
Well, we had Eric, the reptile guy, on this show. We've had him a couple times, and he loves snakes. He loves snakes like we love kittens and puppies. And he was talking about how his snake got depressed. And he could tell.
I guess if you spend a lot of time with your snake, you can figure that out.
They do get depressed. I get calls on the show about snakes, but if you think about it, a snake lives in a great area in the wild. They're brought into a home. They're put in a vivarium where they live in the same rocks, the same thing. Of course, they're going to get a little aggressive because they're not having any stimulation at that point. Even fish need stimulation. A guy calls from Texas and says, I have a great dog. I said, how much exercise is the dog getting? So I have 10 acres in Dallas. I said, that's great, but look at your dog right now. He's lying under an oak tree, getting no more exercise than a dog living in a studio apartment on 58th Street in New York City. So you have to really observe and get involved. If you get involved with your pet, they can teach us so much more than we can teach them.
Well, do you think it's weird that we talk to our pets?
No, in fact, most people, there was a study, I wish I had it with me. There was a study recently that suggested that more people consider their dog or their cat their soulmate than their significant other.
That's not surprising. But should you talk with it in baby talk, or should you talk to it like another adult?
No, I talk to my dog about politics, I talk to them about everything that's going on. And literally, they appreciate the fact, whether they understand everything I'm saying. Most people don't understand everything I'm saying. But if they do understand what I'm saying, if they don't, it's still, they appreciate the fact that I'm taking that time to get down on all fours. We read books together. I read books to my dogs. All right, they're comic books, okay? They're not hard. But I still read books because they love that attention. And as long as it's positive, you're going to get that result.
Yeah, I remember one time our cat was watching TV and our son got in the cat's face and the cat got really mad at him and oomphed at him and walked around and said,
in my cat book, one of the quotes I said, in the beginning, God created man, but seeing him so feeble, he gave him the cat. And it's so true.
So do you treat every single kind of animal there is?
I've been exposed to every animal, but I would say the majority of animals I deal with, it's more like the pets, like the dogs and cats and the occasional bird question, the occasional snake or lizard question. I had a call this week about someone who was working with a couple of rescue doves. So yeah, it doesn't,
Rescue bugs?
Doves.
Oh, okay. I thought you said rescue bugs.
There's nothing wrong with bugs either. I had Madagascar hissing cockroaches as a kid. And let me tell any kids that might be watching this or any adults, if you want people to stay out of your room, get reptiles, put them in your room, get rats and put them in your room. When I was growing up, my sister, my mother, no one would ever go into Warren's room, and I liked it that way.
So
good strategy.
Do you have private clients now that you might visit, or is it all over the phone, or is it just your radio show? What are you doing?
I don't see many private clients. Every once in a while, if it's a really matter of life and death, I'll do a private consultation. But it's mostly over the over the radio now and via the website, you know, I'm hitting close to, I guess, 5 million people a month. So, you know, it keeps me pretty busy. It really does.
Yeah, that's a lot of questions answered for sure. So unfortunately, we're coming to the end of this segment. Just so you know, you got more time than our normal guest does. But it's really been a pleasure to having you. Do you have one more question before we sign off?
No, I just want to give his website. It's thepetshow.com. And I'm assuming people can find your radio show from there.
Yeah, the podcast for the radio show, it's all there. Don't forget that TJ, thepetshow.com. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds of articles that I've written that will resolve a lot of people from the day they bring the dog into the house to the day the dog crosses that rainbow bridge. So check it out. It's a fun site, and everything there is free. I mean, other than the product, everything there is free.
And many thanks for your work. I mean, I think you're making the world a better place if there's better interactions between people and animals, and you're creating happier homes and happier lives. So thanks a ton for that. You are listening to Passage to Profit. We just had Warren Eckstein on, and if you missed part of that, you definitely want to check out our podcast. You can get it on all podcasting places. And we'll be back with more Passage to Profit right after this. And welcome back, everybody. Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. You just heard from the incredible Warren Eckstein talking all about pets and pet and human relations. It was a great segment, and we really hope that you get a chance to listen to it at least twice. So I think it's worth a double listen there. But before we go on to our other distinguished guests, it's time for IP in the news. And for our regular listeners, you know, lots of times we talk about IP stories and we talk about funny patents or trademarks. Today, we're going to try something completely different. It's going to be about trademarks. And as you know, sounds can be trademarked. So
do you think everybody knew that?
I think everybody knows that. What do you think?
They know it now.
Well, I mean, come on. But seriously, we're going to have our guests, Warren, Colleen, Robert and Jen, Kenya, you, me, Carrie, all kind of guess what these trademark sounds are. And we're going to play it twice because we're playing it off the patent and trademark website, and sometimes it's not properly recorded. But if you go to look up one of these trademarks, instead of having a written description of the trademark, they have an MP3 file that you listen to, which is, if you're like a trademark geek like I am, is pretty interesting. So I am going to put it to the team, and it's going to be a contest. And so whoever comes up with the name of the institution that's trademarked this gets Passage to Profit points.
Just shout it out.
Just shout it out. So
here we go. Do it.
All right. First one.
NBC.
Okay.
Well, I used to work there, so I.
That was Carrie Barrett, folks.
That was Carrie Barrett. Okay, let's see here. We've got, all right, here's one that's a little bit longer. I'm not going to play all of it, but hopefully somebody can recognize it.
Man, who's that cat coming down the street? I don't know, but it sounds to me like that wicked man with the phone.
Peter the Beaver?
Harlem
Yes.
Who said that?
Two of us, I think.
Oh,
okay. Well, you get half points each.
Man. So that was Robert and Warren at the same time. Harlem Globetrotters.
Is somebody keeping track of this, by the way? Who's marking down the winners in each category? Okay. Let's see. Here we go.
AMCO.
Yes.
Yes, that was Warren again.
Good.
Uh-oh.
Warren, you're on fire.
Warren,
No,
I
I listen to those radio ads all the time.
All right. This is a more modern one.
Tetris 2 example number 1.
Squid Game.
Is it Tetris? I feel like he said it.
Yeah, well, I think anyone who wins that gets double points, and I think we are Jen going to give you points for that. It's L-Org Company video game machines and electronic Russian folk style tune. So you really pulled that one out.
Yes.
I'll tell you. That
So look
was,
at
Very impressive.
That was Jen too, everyone.
all right. One more. Here we go.
MGM?
Yeah, MGM Brands.
I think that was Carrie again.
All right.
That was Carrie again, MGM.
All right. So
So,
this final one, then, I think
Oh,
the two winners so far are Carrie and Warren. So we're going now to the final round. The winner
Man, am I
gets
stressed now?
you too.
yeah, I know, Warren, it's on.
It's right. And so we're going to get the final one here, and this should be not too difficult. So
what?
that was terrible.
That was terrible. Nobody.
No,
would know
I'll
what
edit that
was.
one out. Okay.
Yeah, we're not using that.
Let's see.
You didn't do the ones I wanted.
I know, I can't find them.
I know, there's a long list on the PTO
There's a long-
website that just,
there's a
it's not
long-
organized by type at all. It's just like,
Okay, here we go.
Double A.
that's not it. You already did that one.
We did that. That's Amco.
You already did that one.
Don't look for double credit now. You said it twice. That's not.
No, you did, that was Amco. You did that one already.
Well, why are you blaming me for all of this?
Because you're the one doing it.
Yeah, but this is hard.
Okay,
This is
I
harder
think
than
you
it
don't
looks.
edit this out. That's what I think.
Don't edit this out.
Why not? This is
Turtles back, right? So see, people say we're funny, but we don't think we are, and we realize they're laughing at us and not with
I
us.
think I'm funny. You can't speak for me.
No, I think they're laughing at us. and
No,
not
I'm
with
sorry.
us.
I am funny. You think you're not funny, but you are funny. Let's
So, let's just keep going.
just
Come
keep going.
on.
Okay. This is for all the marbles. Okay. All the marbles. Are you ready?
Nationwide is on.
Nationwide.
You win.
I think we've been hustled.
Wow, that was spellbinding and exciting. I don't think we've had so much excitement. For your good ear, Carrie, you get an extra bonus.
She gets to interview Colleen.
That's your reward. No, and she also gets
Reward
1,000
or
passive
punishment, we don't
profit
know.
points, which means you get 1,000 copies of this video. And
So now we're gonna go on.
By email, right? By email.
We're gonna go on to have Carrie interview Colleen. Warren, if you want to stick around and ask Colleen questions, you can. You can participate with this interview if you'd like. So
yeah, so this is Carrie Barrett from Carrie Barrett Consulting. She's an Emmy Award winning
broadcaster,
right? And she knows it all. She does it all. She has an incredible consulting business, and we can't wait to hear from her on this interview. So Carrie, take it away.
Well, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Elizabeth. And I can't wait to hear from Colleen, and I know our audience can't wait to hear from Colleen as well. Your name, I've got to jump into it. Ferrari, it's intriguing. Any relationship to the car brand?
Oh, I so wish so. I wish it was true. My dad wished it was true. I wish it was true, but no, unfortunately not. It's with a Y at the end, so we've mixed it all up.
Yeah, they mixed it all up. Well, opportunity lost. Nevertheless, you have found a way to make a great success of yourself and your business as well. Do you want to take a quick second to introduce who you are and what you do to the audience?
Yeah, so I am Colleen Ferrari. 9 years ago, I founded a company called Small Business USA, and we really we were solving the problem for small business owners. We knew that small business owners felt really alone out there. Kind of leading your ship by yourself is a really scary place to be. And we wanted to give small business owners an affordable solution and give them a community that they could rely on and depend on. So I'm pretty amazed. Next year will be our 10th year. And we've, I mean, the list of people that we've been able to help over that time is just more rewarding than anything I've been able to do otherwise in my entire life. So
Well, amazing, and congratulations.
Thanks.
How do you help small business owners? Is it growth strategy? Tell me a little bit more about how you work with them.
yeah, we do two things. The first thing we do is we create a peer advisory board for them. So that would mean if you had let's say you had a marketing company, we would find CEOs that aligned with your same core customer, but also brought something very different skill set to this CEO table that you're surrounding yourself. And we put in an advisor who is really skilled at that level of business in charge of your advisory board. And we give you this honest, really open, secure, NDA protected place to just say, you know what, today sucked. Or we've had people say things like, if I don't get my second round of funding, I am going to have to close my business, or I can't decide between my taxes, my mortgage, and my business. So it's these real places where these real problems are a safe zone, and your peers can we help each other through it. And it's the most empowering, exciting place to be when you're sitting at one of these roundtables. We were early Zoom adapters. So when Zoom hit the market 9 years ago, we actually created a virtual business around that. And we found that it was just as honest, just as straightforward, but we knew that small business owners needed time. So we didn't want to take time away and travel and minutia. So we made it really hard hitting, impactful, and really relevant to each business owner so they could help grow. So to answer your question, I know that wasn't a direct answer, but it's everything. You're going to sit at a table with somebody who's a marketer, somebody who's in finance, somebody who's in HR, somebody who has done it before, and somebody who has a fresh set of eyes. And you're going to sit at that board table, and you're going to have peers that you surround yourself that are going to help you, and a qualified consultant, which is really important to us, that are really invested in your future as if they're an owner.
Well, I think certainly there are undeniable efficiencies that for those of us, and I only started my business a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic started, but for those of us who were not in a virtual environment, and we have had to move from an offline business model to one that is online, you understand that. And as a small business owner myself, I realize that it's quite convenient when someone can offer these things and I don't have to travel across the country. You were also in that exact space close to 10 years ago now, where you too were probably dealing with, like most of us, those questions like I'm on the brink here, or I'm still in the red, and if I don't cross over into the black, it's going to be a bad situation. What was it that moved you to start this business? Were you in corporate prior? What did you see was the need there that inspired you to begin?
So I grew up with a mom who owned a small business and was a brilliant businesswoman, but also a disaster as a businesswoman. So we would fly to Paris one week, and then we would eat, no kidding, spaghetti and ragu for an entire week, because I remember her saying it was 69 cents a serving. She could feed a family on it. And her business was disruptive. And I swore I would never, ever be an entrepreneur. So I ran off to college and I climbed the corporate ladder. And for the last 12 years of my corporate career, I led some pretty big teams, like 3,000 to 5,000 employees. I had total operational control. And friends and my sister and my mom still own their own businesses, and we're fighting this battle. And I remember this moment where my sister had called me and she was like, Colleen, I'm having this problem with our website, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, this is like a 2-minute fix, because I here was in corporate America and I had every resource that I could ever imagine. Meanwhile, she was so desperate that she had spent 2 full days trying to solve a problem and calling people to help give her solutions. And I'm like, it didn't really need to be that hard for her. So, when I was, I was traveling a lot with business, and I realized, one, I had a child on purpose. I wanted to spend time with her. So it was a great opportunity to kind of step away from corporate life and get off the corporate jet and spend some time at home. But it also, there was a bigger calling for me. I saw this solution where we could marry corporate America and small business and give solutions to small business owners that weren't going to break them. And think about, I remember when I first started, I said, I have to live and breathe. I did a ton of research, interviewed more than 100 small business owners. At the time, millennials, that was all people were talking about. So I wanted to make sure that we were ahead of trends and that we were relevant. And it was amazing to me that there was this really big need that I could solve by bringing people together and form a community that solved a problem affordably.
So,
Colleen,
Yeah.
sorry. I just wanted to say something as an entrepreneur. For 23 years, I've been selling a small business, and they're so good at something, but that doesn't make them well-rounded. And it's lonely. Like, where do you go? And that sounds so fascinating that they can find that resource, right? Otherwise, it's really tough sometimes for some people, and you can solve that in a couple of minutes sometimes with the content.
Yeah, I think the loneliness is the hardest part sometimes. And I also think the other thing, and thank you, Robert, for saying that. I think the other thing that as a business owner, so many people want to tell you what to do and give you advice and have ideas. And, for me, I relate it to, I was sitting behind my desk. Even my first year, I wanted to live and breathe our model. So our first year, I created a board of people who I felt epitomizes. The very first board was the one I created for my own company, but it was a well-balanced group. And I'm like, this is my team. If this is going to work. One, I started the business with $1,000 because I'm like, I could invest money into this business, but then I would be doing a disservice to everyone else. I wouldn't be really bootstrapping a business and teaching people how to grow a business if I can't do it myself. And then I created this, I lived and breathed this peer advisory board model. But I remember all the people that wanted to give me advice, and I would be sitting behind my desk, and I'd have as an entrepreneur, especially, I hope many of you can relate to this. There were 1,000 ideas, 1,000 things I could do, 1,000 directions, 1,000 things that were going to make my business the next greatest thing, right? But there was only one of me.
yeah.
And it's really hard to decide what are those things that really do have the biggest impact. What should I spend my time and focus on? And that's where my advisory board was like, what are you talking about? That's a dumb idea, or I tried it again, or I tried it before. Or they were really helpful in grounding me and keeping me in the rails as a new business owner. So
It's so important, because when you're first starting, there's so much that you don't know. And and you get like 1 degree off course in the beginning. That's not a huge deal, but 18 months later, you stay on that trajectory and you are wildly off target. And it can be as simple as making like a wrong decision about who to surround yourself with. And you're right.
So
I don't think America's favorite pastime is baseball. It's like offering unsolicited advice to business owners and new parents. I've been in both of those.
I'll tell you an amazing story, though, something that really resonated for me when I first started. So one of the catalysts for this was I had really close friends who owned a restaurant for 20 years. And so, I was leading big teams. So I'd always bring my team there to, celebrate events and, just try to really support their business. But I knew the minute I walked in, the minute I saw their faces, I knew the business was in trouble. I've been in business for 20 years before that, 23 years before that. And I thought, I just know they're struggling. And so the owner, a really good friend, would regularly say, hey, Colleen, he'd ask me questions. Why do businesses fail? Why do you think some businesses or restaurants are successful and others aren't? And, in my heart of hearts, I went to a lot of restaurants, but more importantly, I was a leader. I led a lot of teams. I had a lot of operational knowledge that I was bringing to the table. And when I looked at his restaurant, I knew what the problems were. I knew what the most important things that he needed to fix were. But when it comes to a really good friend, the relationship always comes first. And so I knew that one of his biggest problems was his bartender, who was also his right-hand person, was really dismissive of clients, really rude, was not like, that was the first face that you saw. I knew there was some other opportunities as well. But so I said to him that, you know, at a service level, I said to him, you know what? I think you should sit back and really make sure your team is doing what you think they should be doing. I thought, oh, this is really good feedback, right? I don't have to be really rude and tell him his right-hand person, his niece or whoever it was the problem. I could say, hey, look at your team. And what do you think he did? Because I lobbed a softball in and I didn't give him that direct feedback.
He didn't pick it up, did he?
He put his bartender in charge of doing that job and getting how people were responding. I was so frustrated. So I did. You have
Carrie, we're down to one last question here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. The story is so appropriate. Let me ask you, because I think it ties right into one of the main things that we'd like the audience to walk away with is, what are those mistakes that people are making? What are like the top 3 mistakes that, you know, maybe it's like him, he doesn't see the weaknesses in the team, but what do you find are sort of the trend items here?
Yeah, I think the first one is really financial mismanagement always lands at the top. You know, you can have a great company, a great idea. If you don't have a really good plan about how you're going to fund it, what your expectation is, where your money is best spent, whether that be marketing or other types of resources, a great attorney, quite frankly. That's one of those things that people get in trouble with all the time. The second thing I see is that people lose track of who their customer is. They have this great idea. It starts to sell, whatever that idea is. It starts to sell and they get excited naturally. And then what happens next is they're so in love with their idea that they forget that their customer is changing, their environment is changing, their competition is changing, and they just really lose sight of those things. So they kind of get left behind in that. And I would probably say that the third thing is that real lack of truth, you know, just like the story I just told you, really having somebody who's going to give you that tough feedback when you need it, whether it's you off the rails, your business off the rails, you over focusing on something. I think you need somebody who's really trusted and invested in you that can have those hard conversations with you to make sure that you actually see your business for what it is and not for what's in your heart and what you believe it is.
Very good. And I know we'll give the audience an opportunity to figure out how they could potentially work with you at the end of the show, but such great advice, Colleen. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. And boy, I need hard, truthful advice a lot because
I give it to you.
And you certainly do. So, and spades, as a matter of fact.
It's funny. We have several businesses that are couples.
They're right in there too.
Yeah. It's sometimes I think we're marriage counselors. Sometimes we have lots of businesses that are husband and wife or family run businesses, and it gets tricky. So I applaud the two of you because you make it look easy. It's fun to watch.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway.
Looks can be deceiving, but
yeah.
I think now it's time for a commercial break. So thank you very much, everyone. And thank you again, Carrie and Colleen. It was a very informative interview, and we'll be back with more Passage to Profit right after this. And welcome back to Passage to Profit. Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart here. We have just had such an awesome show. I'm so excited for what happened. And like my beautiful wife just said, there's more to come. So before we get on to our presentations, it's time for Power Move and Firesight. So Kenya, what is Power Move about tonight?
Excited about Power Move this evening. We are going to be talking about Idris Sandis. He's a 24-year-old technologist who has partnered with Jay-Z and Marcy Venture Partners to empower tech, culture, and humanity. So under this partnership, Sandow is going to be launching a tech incubator to help creators and startups access the meta universe more easily. And we were talking a little bit about the metaverse before the show started with Elizabeth, and she had mentioned Facebook. So I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, Elizabeth.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just saw recently that Facebook is starting a metaverse, which is going to be full of avatars, I guess, and is kind of a scary thought for people with children. I mean, it's going to be, I don't know what it's going to happen, honestly.
What's the difference between a metaverse and a multiverse?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't, maybe
I've
I don't
heard
know,
both terms used, by the way. One on
Yeah.
the Big Bang Theory
Well, I
and the
think
other by Mark
A
Zuckerberg.
multiverse is more than one. A metaverse is an alternate one. Just, I think, one alternate one to what we have now is would be.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know what a
Merriam-Webster for that. I guess I asked. That was actually a very cogent explanation. So thank you.
Yes. So, yeah. So, well, congratulations to him.
Yeah. Well, once we get to I'd like to see a metaverse for sure. And
Not one run by,
somebody has
not one run the way Facebook is.
No, but just, not a Facebook metaverse, but just your ordinary everyday metaverse, and see what it looks like so that I can
Well, you're going to get your
relate to it.
chance.
Yeah.
I think I want to master the universe first here and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
And well, what's funny though is if you bringing this back to intellectual property, lots of times in copyright contracts, for a while it was the style to include the phrase "and all rights in the universe relating to this particular IP." So I guess we're going to have to get with the shtick and say all rights related to the metaverse, right? Related to this or the multiverse, because I think the legal profession's a little bit behind the times on that one. So
That's interesting you bring that up though. Is that actual language that you would use? Like, so say there are creators who are doing things in the metaverse, you'd have to include that, I'm thinking, based on what you said.
yeah, that's a interesting legal question. And when I have an answer for it, you'll be the first to know. But in fact, they do use the term universe pretty frequently. So, which is always kind of a chuckle, but that's just the way these things work out. So anyway, that's good. Now it's time for Fireside.
Okay.
Set your business on fire with Fireside.
No, you don't want to burn your business down. No, so Firesight Directory is a video directory of small businesses that I started a while ago, and I'm working on it now, and I'm trying to redo the website now. I've got a lot of interviews under my belt, and there's a certain format I want to use. Nobody has this yet that I've seen. And I'm struggling with finding the right website person. So I may actually be calling you, Colleen, because I'm trying to work with different people, and the way people are doing websites now, it's not like it was 20 or 30 years ago where they were focused on the back end and really getting the tech part down. Now everybody starts a website focusing on the outbound marketing, right? And the inbound marketing. And so they don't care about the tech part, and the tech part is the only part I want. So it's really been a struggle to find a website person. So I'm a little bit stuck there, but I'm gonna get past this barrier.
Yeah, for sure. Call me. We'll have a conversation about it.
That sounds great, because she really has struggled with finding programmers that kind of get her and the project. And to me, it's like really obvious and straightforward, but it just seems like there's so many developers that are sort of pigeonholed into one kind of development that they struggle with it.
They're not even developers. Like if you went straight to the developer, which I can't do because I don't speak techese, right? They're the people that have the marketing companies or the website companies. They're all focused on marketing. They're not focused on the actual website. And actually, when we were going to redo the Gearhart Law website, the first thing the guy said to us was, well, your website's not as important as like the social media stuff. But it's like, but we hired you to do the website. Didn't work out, long story short. So getting a website these days is a real challenge to get what you want. So, but I'm going to power through this block.
But that said, it's time for our presenters, right? And
I can hardly wait to hear about this. So Robert Harbauer sent us a sample of his product, Bondic. If you have been using glue, this is something completely new. It's innovative. and it will replace all the glue once people find out about it. So please, Robert, explain your product.
Well, you'd know it if you've ever had a cavity and gone to the dentist, and instead of using the amalgams and the silvers, they put a liquid in and they cure it with a blue light or a UV light. And if you ever had your nails done, then you put it in a UV light to cure it. So it's that technology. It's been used in printing and other things to cure quicker. We live in a world that, you know, my parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents, if something broke, they fixed it with glue. They put two things together, and with time and pressure, it cured. But how many times have you ever picked up a glue and it doesn't work anymore because it's spent, the solvents have gone out, etc. And this is different because I'm making new plastic. So instead of throwing something away because it was a poor design, because it broke, because I'm missing something, I can actually make that thing. So think of it as a 3D printer in your pocket that you can use anywhere, any place, anytime, and fix and improve or repair or make something brand new. That's what it is. So it's a different category than glue. There's a glue for everything, but this is when you need to make something new, improve something, etc. And that's what it is. So if you do break your nail, you can just add it and fix it because you're not near a nail place if you're on holiday or something.
So can you explain a little bit more how that works? So it's more than just putting two things together, sticking them together, right? It's
if you're missing the piece. So pretend you sat on your glasses and you're on vacation, right? So they're prescription glasses, and your vacation, you can't read, you can't see, you can't walk, you need those glasses. Another example is how many times my girlfriend had Prada glasses, very expensive prescription sunglasses, but they wouldn't stay in her hair on her head because the arms opened up too wide. So we closed the arms, we added a little bit of Bondic, cured it because it's like a drop of honey, and then we added it, turned the light on it for 4 seconds, and we made a new piece of plastic attached to the arms. And now when the arms open up, they don't open up as wide, so it stays tight on your head. And there's no way that they could have fixed that. That would have been stuck for them, right? So you would have to go to the place you bought the glasses, but the glasses were designed poorly that way.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I love this quote from your write-up on, I don't know if this came from your website, but Bondic is the world's first liquid plastic welder, making glue look like the antiquated, third-rate, old-fashioned, laughable stepchild of paste that it's always been.
That was our launch.
Glue people here, aren't we?
Yeah, we created a character called Jim Bondic, James Bond. And that was his opening line, right? So then he shot glue that was flying in the air. That's on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's a different thing.
I see this product though as solving one of the biggest problems that I have. So like when I use super glue, I always end up gluing my fingers together, and it like takes 3 or 4 hours to get them separated. That won't happen with this product, right?
Well, first of all, I'm not gluing it. You know, the history of super glue was a medical product, right? It was to put wounds together in the battlefield where you couldn't do any stitching. So that's where it originally came from. It was super, super, super sticky. So they've dumbed it down because people glue their finger to their eyelid because they rub their eye. So it was a real problem. But again, that's when you're putting two things together. And in this case, I'm making something new. So if you broke your nail, you would be able to make a new piece and connect it and at least get through the day so you don't catch it on everything. If you smash your drone, you could make that little part that's missing. If you lose your earring backing and you're away and stores are closed, then you could make an earring backing and wear that jewelry to the wedding, for example. So if you're fishing, if you've got waders that have a hole, how are you going to plug that? How many times have you had an air mattress and your guest wakes up like a sausage in a bun? So how do you fix that? You can just put the Bondic on. And
not many, actually, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's nice to know that it's there in case we do have a guest like that.
So Robert, is your goal with this company to sell it to 3M or somebody, or do you want to just keep it yourself and keep growing it?
You know, my focus is, there's a bit of history. So a dentist invented it. I found the product in a hardware store in Germany. I contacted them to distribute it. I got the North American rights to distribute it. I bought it from them and it all failed because the quality was bad. And this dentist was genuinely a really good person. He just wasn't a great business person. He'd unfortunately had some experience with bankruptcy before. And I was put in the position with this new company that I was going to be in the same boat. So I just said, listen, Tom, Dr. Tom Offerman was his name. You need to let me fix the problems. You need to let me manufacture it. You're a great inventor. Keep like your invention's going. Just speed up a story. He suddenly died at age 50 unexpectedly, and his wife and child were there. So nothing was on the way. So I basically put his wife on the payroll, and we moved forward because this is something that everybody can use at least once. I mean, everybody knows, for example, a Crazy Glue, and they stopped those commercials 20 years ago, but we know exactly what it is. And I need to get to the point where we use Bondic as a verb. Like somebody's going to say, don't glue that, you need to Bondic that. And I'm not there yet. That's the goal. There's a lot of challenges because everybody thinks of it as a glue, and everybody knows a glue is $3.99 or $1.99 or $4.99. And I'm like a 14, now $14 product. At that time, we were like $21. So there was so much rejection and so much resistance because one of my product would replace 10 other products on a shelf. So no buyer wanted to spend or make that investment to something they didn't know, right? And then there was 37 people that knocked us off in spite of having the copyrights and the trademark and the patent stuff. So if you don't defend your patent, then it's going to become worthless. So now you have a whole new set of costs that you never anticipate because you don't think the world is that evil, yet they are. And so you have to combine that with marketing, right? So our thing was that we have to get people to understand. And it was so bad that people from competitive products would contact us. We'd find out it wasn't even our product that they were bitching about. And we'd say, listen, sorry, you have a bad knockoff. Can we send you complimentary our product? Because I wanted them to be at a Thanksgiving table and say, listen, I was so stupid, Cousin George. I was complaining and swearing at this company, and then they even made it better, right? So I want people to talk about it in a positive way. To answer your question, I haven't reached the goal of making it that popular yet. And that's my main thing, right? I've got to create this brand that's global. We're in 53 countries so far.
Well, we have a marketing genius here, right?
Yes.
Kenya.
Don't look at me.
Yeah. So Kenya is an incredible creative, and she's an incredible marketer. So Kenya, what do you think?
Well, I think it's great. And I'm not sure like how you're segmenting yourselves in the market, right? Like I think about nail salons and just how often I go get my nails done. And I literally was gluing my nail back together while we were all talking just now because it was lifting up. My question is, have you segmented specific demographics that you want to go after? I mean, obviously everybody can use this, but like, have you thought about maybe going after particular segments like nail salons and so on and so forth? And the other part of it is more of a scientific question because I'm a little bit of a geek and a nerd. In terms of like the glue, like the breakdown, right? Like regular glue breaks down very easy, right? What is the life cycle, would you say, of your product compared to a traditional competitor on the market?
So remember, it's not a glue. And let me just try and give you an explanation of what plastic is. Plastic is a polymer chain. So think of chemicals or blobs that are attracted to each other that want to get organized. And when they get organized somehow, that's what you know as plastic. It's a polymer. And what you have in our little tin is a tube of liquid where there's a fluid separating the ability for those two components to attract and come together, get organized, and become a plastic. Except when you shine that UV light or when you hold that fluid in the sun, a chemical process occurs where the fluid basically dissipates and allows for those monomers, that's what they're called, to come together and become a plastic. Any type of glue is a product that has a solvent in it that is air cured. So the minute you open up a glue, which is meant to put two things together, and there's a specific glue for metal, for wood, for plastic, or whatever, we're not a glue, we're not a solvent. And that's why that tube lasts for years. Maybe the battery on the LED is gone, like a battery lasts, let's say 5 years in storage. So that's why it's always good when you take it out of a tin. That's why it's in a tin, so it's protected from UV light. It's in a black tube. So you're making new plastic rather than putting two things together. Can you connect two things? Yes. It's like making a bridge and making it stronger, right? So if your bone breaks, it heals back bigger. You're doing that. You're creating like a healing process with this plastic. And what was the other question about the market segment?
The market segment, yeah.
So I'm a guy, I saw it in a hardware store in Germany, and I'm like, DIY guy, right? So that's where our entire focus was until we started to go online and sell it and get the analytics from the website. and the Google Analytics, for example. And then we realized that come Q4, we turn into a company that sells, instead of to a DIY guy 35 and up, 71% of our customers are women, age 45 and up. And the logical reason is because without women in your life, Christmas is going to suck, because they're always thinking ahead, planning ahead, making sure everybody's stocking stuff, nobody's left out, even bad cousin George or whatever, right? So everybody's included. And we become a huge giftable, right? And that's why we decided now, and I think I sent it to you, we printed on the tin for your law firm, right? So it's not just another golf shirt, it's not just another umbrella or a koozie or a mug. It's something that's going to last for years, and you can put a cool message on it. So we in Q4 we turn into 71% female above age 45, but we can sell to everybody, right? Adults will buy it for their kids. People buy it for model train, for boat, for fishing, hiking, camping. If you have a hole in your tent and it's leaking on your forehead, because that's where the hole is going to be, how are you going to fix that? Right? And if it's wet, duct tape isn't going to work, but I could put a drop of Bondic, spread around, cure it, and solve the problem for the rest of the camping trip. So that's what it's for. It's for emergency use. It's kind of like a fire extinguisher really isn't good at the shelf at Home Depot. You kind of need it in the kitchen. The Swiss knife isn't really good if you're stranded and need to survive. If it's online at Amazon, you need to have it with you all the time. So that's where we're trying to get to.
Well, I'm very motivated to use your product, and I'm sure I can find a few things to bond together around the house.
We're having a deck.
It'll work in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months when you think about, oh man, that's a Bondic thing. Where is it? You'll find it in the tin in your junk drawer because it's not the same as everything else.
So unfortunately, we're running out of time,
Yes,
but
so
this has been a great bonding experience for me.
I
And
get to
thank
wrap
you.
this one up.
And so
Okay.
she's going to wrap this up.
Yes, so thank you very much, Robert Harbauer, I'm sorry, with Bondic, which you can find at the website notaglue.com. It's not a glue, it's Bondic.
This is product differentiation to the max.
And listeners, you are listening to Passage to Profit on WOR 710, the voice of New York. We will be right back after this message. Welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Passage to Profit on WOR 710. And we have just had an amazing show so far.
And we were talking about Burning Man during the break. So,
right.
But we're not going to repeat any of that here.
If you missed any of the show, podcast is out tomorrow on all the major podcasting platforms, iHeart, of course. And it's definitely worth going back and listening to because, wow, that's all I can say. Now we have our next presenter, Jen Du with BiBi Beverages, a woman after my own heart. Oh my gosh, she's got the hangover cure. So welcome. Tell us all about it.
Boy, that
Jen.
was revealing. Are you sure you want thousands of people to hear that? But I guess you do. So let's just keep going.
Hey, why not?
Oh my gosh. So hi, I'm Jen Du. I'm the founder and owner of BiBi Beverages. And I'll start by telling you the story of why I created the company. And that's because my 20s looked probably nothing like yours. I was never able to drink even a few sips of alcohol without flushing all red. My entire body would turn bright red like a tomato. And I get really bad stomach aches, headaches just after a few sips of alcohol. And so I've never been to a tailgate party. I didn't really go to parties when I was in my 20s. Networking events were kind of awkward for me. Dating was extremely awkward because, you know, what's the first thing you do when you go to a restaurant or a lounge is you order a drink, and it's like an icebreaker. So I dedicated my 30s to helping people who have that same problem. Turns out there's billions of people around the world that flush red, feel hot, get headaches and stomach aches when they drink alcohol. And I launched my first product before, it was called Before Elixir, and it was just made to solve this problem called Asian glow, is the street term for it, or alcohol flush syndrome. It affects 70% of Asian people and about 10% of the general population. And then after a few years of having that in market, I learned that people really want hangover prevention and something that they can drink the next day if they don't feel good. So that's BiBi Beverages now. We make a whole line of alcohol detox and wellness shots for health conscious party goers. So any celebration you need, we got you covered.
That's great. I love the marketing around that. Wellness for hangovers. You know, that just, I think, says it all, right? So do these products really work, or is this, is this just
What do you
marketing?
think she's gonna say?
I know, that's another question I get, and I'll say this. We've been around for 3 years. If it didn't work, we wouldn't be selling in 9 states right now. And in Q1 of next year, our distribution is expanding to 26 states. So you got to try it for yourself.
Well, I did order 3 of them for Christmas. The holidays are coming
Oh
up,
my
right? Our
gosh.
kids are gonna be around and yeah, so I won't talk about that one Christmas Eve when you and Sean.
You just placed your order a few days ago because I saw an order come in and I thought, is
Yeah.
that the same person?
Yeah, that was me. There was
Yeah.
one Christmas Eve where our son,
Elizabeth was very attracted to this product.
our son totally corrupted Richard, and they were up till 4 a.m. Let's just say we opened presents at like 3 p.m.
That was years ago, and that was not me. That was somebody else. I deny that rumor completely.
But I will not buy chocolate vodka. I won't have it in the house because I've tasted it a few times. It's so good. I'm like, I could see myself totally overdoing this and killing myself, really.
So does this work with any type of alcohol? Speaking of chocolate vodka, I mean, if you do the peppermint schnapps, does it help with that? Or, is it just certain types of alcohol?
So that's a really interesting question. Hangovers and flushing occur, it's a metabolic issue. So I'm going to get kind of sciencey on you. When you drink alcohol, your body breaks down to a toxin called acetaldehyde. And if you have just the right amount of that toxin, you can just have a nice buzz, feel warm and a little tipsy. If you have too much of that toxin, that's what causes a hangover or fogginess, tiredness the next day. And people who have that flush response to alcohol, we metabolize alcohol 40 to 100 times faster than average. So that means we're building up 40 to 100 times more of that toxin, which causes us to have that systemic flushing response. So it depends on the person. That's why, and everyone has a different relationship.
We just lost you.
Yeah.
We lost your sound.
Oh.
We lost your sound when you were just saying everyone has a different relationship and then you cut out.
Just start over again.
Okay, yeah. So everyone has a different relationship to alcohol. Some people swear, I'll never drink tequila again. And they only drink light colored liquors like vodka, some people only drink whiskey, some people only drink beer. So it depends. If you have a good relationship to peppermint schnapps, then, you're fine.
Relationship to peppermint schnapps. I'm fascinated so are you an alcoholic by now, since you have all of these treatments and you had the hangover?
We don't normally ask people these questions like this on this show.
Well, you don't have to answer. Let me rephrase it let me rephrase this. So do you find yourself drinking more now that you have a treatment for hangovers?
You're gonna laugh at my answer. I actually don't drink ever.
Really?
Yes. So it's because I developed a strong aversion to alcohol in my 20s, but I developed a really strong passion for solving that problem because I didn't want other people to feel excluded from social events like I did. So my passion for alcohol is all in helping people have a healthy relationship with it and feel good after any celebration. And I kind of compare myself to the late Tony Hsieh. He's the founder of Zappos. They sold billions of shoes. He himself had only a few pairs of shoes. His passion was in bringing other people shoes. So that's where my passion lies. And
he certainly corrupted me. But I know that we have other people who want to weigh in on this. So Kenya, Carrie?
I would love to ask Jen, it's Colleen. I would love to ask, what is the active ingredient that kind of how does it work? And then I wonder, I have a few friends that are going through menopause and I'm like, man, it's all the same symptoms, right? Head fogginess, hot flashes, flushness. I'm like, hold on a second. Maybe there's another market here.
Menopause is my next item on the list.
Yeah.
So I have 3 different products. One nightcap is the nighttime prevention. You drink that before you go to bed. Morning after is literally, I own the trademark, since we're talking about trademarks. I own the trademark for morning after in the supplement industry. And then the third product is Lighten Up, and that is the one that prevents the flushing for people who have that problem. So each drink is different. One of the active ingredients we use in 2 of our drinks is called dihydromercetin. It is the active ingredient found in a plant called the Japanese raisin tree. And it has been clinically proven to remove that acetaldehyde toxin from your body. So a lot of people think hangovers are caused by dehydration or various things, but they're actually not. They're caused by an overabundance of that toxin. So we help you flush that right out of your liver and out of your body.
That's great. Carrie, any questions or comments?
One of my very best friends in the world is Vietnamese. And when she and I get together, I learned about, she calls it the Asian flush, of which she is not a victim. And so most times she's the one who's out drinking me, but we have this conversation on the regular because she doesn't have that experience. Nevertheless, she has friends who have avoided alcohol for the same reasons that you do. They couldn't go out to a bar and like get a glass of wine without looking like they were a disaster. And so I think this is really smart. It's so targeted. I had no idea that this product existed, and neither does she, but I'm very excited to tell her, because despite the fact that she doesn't need it, she knows a whole slew of people who do.
It's not. I lived in Korea for 2 years. So I'm Vietnamese French, born in California, USA. And I lived in Korea and worked there for 2 years. And in Korea, people have makeup to cover up, because when you flush red, your skin turns a different color. So they have makeup to counteract that. It's like a more green foundation that cover it up. And you look like you're literally wasted, even if you've after just one drink. So, there's a lot of judgment behind it. And if you go out on a nice date, you don't want to look that way. So there's literally billions of people in the world have this problem. And then most everyone is susceptible to a hangover. So I'm your lady.
I'm the one who has the hangover. She's good to go. But I do think, people think it's like, oh, it's just an excuse to drink heavily, but it's not. If you haven't experienced that and know what the perception is that comes along with it, you may not recognize why this could be a game changer for so many people.
I agree.
Yeah. Jen, I think this is brilliant. What is your background? Like,
So
how did
my
you?
background is, I've been a problem solver and entrepreneur kind of my entire life. I had no intention of building this business though. I used to work in the music industry, and then I went to business school, and I had a career in the tech industry all lined up. I used to work at Dell and Alienware. And in business school though, in my second year of business school, my friend invited me to a startup competition in New York City at the Alley, NYC. And it was called the Lean Startup Machine, based off of the book, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. And they asked participants to come with a problem, not a product, a problem you want to solve that you've never worked on before. And so I thought immediately, Asian glow. I've been suffering for my entire life. I want to solve that. So I was selected to form a team, and my team won out of all 12 teams. And the judges said that you go away the competition, you have to create this product. It could be the next Red Bull. And I just looked at them like dazzled. And I thought, I'm about to go into this career in the tech industry. I wasn't planning on, launching a business. And my parents have been entrepreneurs their whole life. And like you, Colleen, I saw like, it is just so stressful, and then years later, here I am. But, all that blood, sweat, and tears paid off, because just this year we partnered with UNFI, which is the largest grocery distributor in the US. And
That's
so
awesome. You know what? I'm sorry to have to bust in here and end this conversation. Do you have one quick thing or?
Yeah, really quick. So does it help you sober up? Because I know it helps alleviate. right? Alleviate, having these toxins. But I just think about that market of people who, I've experienced drinking and driving selfishly and have a whole personal story behind that, which is why I think it's so important to bring awareness to that. Have you ever thought of creating something in that spectrum where someone's able to drink something before they leave a restaurant or before they leave a place, just to, keep themselves safe and other people safe on the road? Because I think that that's a market that, I don't know, gets overlooked, but I think a lot of people deal with that from time to time.
It's something crossed my mind. There are a lot of things that you got to be careful with in that realm. I can see a lot of legal issues coming up. I'm going to say nothing is better than time and water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eating a nice sandwich,
Well, on that note, I'm going to drink some more water.
The sandwich part I like too. So
we're going to have to wrap this up. And listeners, you are listening to Passage to Profit on WOR 710. And if you missed any of this, it will be on our podcast tomorrow. And we will be right back after this message. Well, welcome back, listeners.
It was an amazing show.
Passage to Profit.
In so many respects. And we totally enjoyed doing this, didn't we?
Right. And so who was on the show today? If you missed it, you want to go back and listen to it. These people are amazing. We first had Warren Eckstein, pet psychologist, has his own radio show, thepetshow.com. He was amazing. If you have a pet, which so many of us do, and you have a question, you can find out more from his website and call into his radio show.
And I think his motto should be, your pet's not crazy, you are, because that was
kind of the message we got. Then we had Carrie Barrett from Carrie Barrett Consulting, and she interviewed Colleen Ferrary, not spelled exactly the same way, but as the car, but Colleen has smallbusinessus.com, where she helps people who are starting their own small businesses. And it's really a wonderful organization.
Yeah. Make your small business go vroom, vroom, and you'll get further down the road. So
how long did it take you to come up with that one?
It was just like that. I'm a natural.
Oh my God. Okay. And we had, of course, Kenya Gipson with a P, Kenya Gipson at iHeartMedia.com, talking about Power Move and Idris. And she is our media maven for Passage to Profit. If you need marketing ideas, if you want to be on the radio, if you want to do digital marketing, contact Kenya. She's got it all figured out. And
she's got it all.
Never said that about me, but that's okay. Anyway.
I definitely don't have it all, by the way, but thank you.
And then we had Robert Harbauer with Bondic, which he describes it extremely well. It's not a glue, it's an actual chemical.
No, it's definitely not a glue.
But you can use it in so many different ways. It's the product of the future. It really, like we talk about innovation and being in the future, it really is. And you can find it at notaglue.com. And I just think that Robert's going to take off with this. It's really a very cool product.
And have a bonding experience with a member of your family.
And then we had Jen do with BiBi Beverages, BiBi Beverages.com. So she has these medicinal type of beverages that help people who like to drink. So she has a variety of them that help your body process the nasty chemicals that result in a night of binging.
Yeah, I never heard of the Asian flush, and I can see how it is a real problem. And Jen has devoted a significant part of her career to solving that. So hats off to you, Jen. I think it's an amazing thing.
So they all did a great job. And what I love about this show is that I get ideas for little gifts for the people in my life. So
there you go. So that is a great thing. And unfortunately, we have to wrap things up. I'd like to say thank you to our producer, Noah Fleischman, our production assistant, Alicia Morrissey, and our video editor, which is Chatterboss. But before we go, I'd like to ask our guests for some final comments. So Carrie, what are your final comments?
You know what, Elizabeth, I was going to say the exact same thing that you do. I always learn a ton and make great connections when I'm part of Passage to Profit. I also got a substantial number of items ticked off my holiday list during this call as well. I've got Bondic for my husband. Colleen, I have you for my business. And Jen, I know a slew of people who need what you do as well.
Also
So
happy
my final
example for Robert too, so.
That's great. So Kenya, final thoughts?
Yeah, so I always feel like we always have this overarching theme of the show, right? And I would say for today, it was definitely problem solving, right? We got to talk about problem solving when it comes to pets, when it comes to small business with Colleen, when it comes to Bondic with Robert, and, you know, BiBi Beverages. I mean, you're saving the world one bottle at a time, right? So it's a great show, great conversation. And again, just back to what Passage to Profit does, we are also in the problem solving business when it comes to innovation and entrepreneurship. So great show today.
Well, thank you very much. We enjoyed it. And thank you to our audience. We love you. Keep the cards and letters and texts coming in. And we're happy to be on iHeartRadio. You're listening to Passage to Profit on iHeartRadio, WOR 710, the voice of New York.
The end.